What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Sorry I haven't been getting back to your emails and comments. That is because I am in beautiful Banff National Park. This place is breathtaking. Oh my God. It's my first time here and I highly recommend checking this place out. Banff National Park. It is so amazing. It looks even better in person, believe it or not. Check it out. Got the mountains. The water is super clear, super clean. So don't worry, I will get back to everybody's comments and emails. I just thought I'd give you guys an update to where I am. And also we'll continue the compound interest challenge as soon as I get some time to record again. It's kind of hard when I have views like this. There is no bad shot in Banff National Park. I'm noticing every single park, every angle is a good shot. If you're a photographer, it is just so beautiful. So anyways, I thought I'd update you guys on what I'm doing, where I am. We will continue the compound interest challenge. I will answer your emails and comments. I hope you guys are having a great day. Have a great weekend, and I will talk to you guys soon. Ciao. What I'm gonna do is show you my version of the Hong Kong Baccarat strategy. Now, before I show you my twist on the Hong Kong strategy, I will show you how to play it the original way. Okay, so let's get started. First thing you're gonna do is look for a brand new shoe. Now, take a look at the first three results that come up. All right, let's say our first three results are player, player, banker. Okay, what you're gonna do is record this three pattern. All right, so let's go ahead and do that. Player, player, banker. Now what you're gonna do is use check marks and X's to match up the results of the shoe according to your three pattern. And what I mean by this is, say the next hand is player. Okay, so you will write down a check mark since the first result matched your three pattern. Okay, your three pattern is player, player, banker. So if the result is player, it is the correct result. We will put a check mark. If this was a banker, we would put an X. Okay, so let's say the next result is banker. Take a look at your three pattern. It's showing player. The next result is banker, which means this result was wrong, so you would put an X down. Okay, let's say the next result is player. Take a look at your three pattern once again. What does it show? Banker. And the last result was player, so obviously this is wrong again. You would put another X down. Okay, so your first row looks like this. Check mark, X, X. Pretty simple, right? Now, before we continue, I just want to mention one thing about the original version of the Hong Kong strategy. Before you mark any of these down, you will have to take a free hand. So let's clear some hands here. Let's say the first three results are player, player, banker. As you can see in the shoe, you would go ahead and jot that down. You would let the fourth result come off. Okay, let's say the fourth result is banker. You would not record this at all. You would just put banker right next to your three pattern and then completely ignore it. Why? Because in the Chinese culture, 4 is an unlucky number, which means death. Okay, you can call it superstition if you want, but number 4 is unlucky to the Chinese, so that is why they do not record the fourth result. And if you are playing it the original way, this is how you would do it. You would skip the fourth result. So after the fourth result, you would be ready to record the check marks and X's. Okay, so let's let a few hands come off and start recording the outcomes. So next result is banker. What would we put over here? Well, since our three pattern is showing player and a banker came up, you wouldn't mark it as a check mark. You would give it an X since it doesn't match. Next result in the shoe is player. We take a look at our 3 pattern, player. These two match, so we would put a check mark here. We are going to continue with the shoe. Next result is banker. We take a look at our 3 pattern. We see a banker. This also matches, so we would put a check mark down. Now, you might be asking, what is the point of this? What are we looking for? Okay, I will get to that now. So the original version of the Hong Kong strategy, remember, this is not my version. What you're looking for is 3 X's in a row, okay? Or 3 check marks in a row. So what you're supposed to be doing is writing down the results of the shoe until you come across 3 X's in a row or 3 check marks in a row. Once this happens, let's just say we get 3 X's in a row. I will clear this. The next row, you will be betting on the check mark. Okay, so again, once you get 3 X's in a row, you will be betting on the check mark for the next row. So take a look here. Our pattern is player, player, banker. We would be betting on player right now because we are looking for the check mark. Okay, if a player comes, great. We got a win. We will wait for another 3 pattern of all X's or all check marks. Okay, so yes, a little bit of a waiting game, but that is how this strategy is played. Okay, let's say we continue recording the outcomes of the shoe and we come across 3 check marks in a row. We are now going to be betting on the X for the next row. Okay, so take a look here. What would you be betting on over here? Since our 3 pattern is player, player, banker, first result is player, so we are betting that we will get an X, so we are betting against player. Our bet would be banker. Okay, and if a banker comes up, great, we get an X, we win, we wait for another 3 pattern to appear. I hope this makes sense and it's not confusing. By the way, one more thing to mention, I'm gonna go ahead and clear this. Let's say you're recording the results and you come across your 3 X's in a row. You start out betting on player because you're looking for the check mark, you lose. What do you do now? Well, you continue betting on the check mark until you hit. Okay, so if you take a look up here, it is also another player, so you would bet on player once again. And there you go. You hit your check mark, you win, you wait for the next 3 pattern. Make sense? Okay, now that I have told you how to play the original version of the Hong Kong strategy, I'm going to show you how to play it my way. Okay? So again, look for a brand new shoe and write down the first 3 results. Okay? So let's say the first 3 results are banker, player, banker. You would go ahead and write that down. So banker, player, banker. Now, I am not superstitious, okay? So I'm not going to skip the 4th hand. I am going to take a look at the first 3 results and write those down, and I'm ready to go. So what I'll do is take a free hand here, and let's say the first result is banker, okay? We take a look at our 3 pattern. It is banker, player, banker. So the first result was banker. Obviously, this is a check mark because they match, okay? And once I get the first result, what I'm gonna do in my version is just copy the check mark or the X, whatever showed up. All right, so less waiting around with my version. Okay, you don't have to wait for 3 check marks or 3 X's. You could get right into the action for each row. All right, so take a look here. We get a check mark as our free hand. So what I'm gonna do is bet on the check mark. All right, I'm gonna bet that this will also be a check mark. How would I do that? I would place a bet on player because my 3 pattern is showing that the second result is player. So I would bet on player, and there we go, a player came up, we win, we get the check mark. After a win, I will keep recording the row of 3 until I get to my next row. So even though I'm not betting over here, I will continue to record the result. Okay, so let's say another player came up. It doesn't match with our banker up here, so this is an X. It doesn't matter because we are not betting. We are now on the second row. I'm gonna do the exact same thing, okay? So take a free hand first. I always take a free hand at the beginning of each row. Okay, so let's say another player shows up. Does it match with our 3 pattern, the first bet here? No, it doesn't. Our 3 pattern is showing banker, so this would be an X. What am I gonna do now? I will be betting on this being an X because I'm just following what happens at the beginning of each row. So since this is an X, I'm gonna bet on the X right over here. How do I do that? Well, I take a look at my 3 pattern. It's showing player. So in order for me to get an X here, I would have to bet against this. This has to be wrong for me to get an X. Okay, so betting against player, it would have to be a banker bet. So I'm gonna put 1 unit on banker, and let's say a banker shows up. There we go. So that is an X, and that is another win for us. Okay, again, we are gonna be recording until we get to the next row. All right, so if the next result is banker, you record it. Check mark because a banker matches with our 3 pattern right up here. All right, now let's say I lose. Okay, so I take a free hand here, obviously. Banker, so that is a check mark. What do? We bet on the check mark. Okay, so if I'm betting on the check mark, I will be betting on player because my 3 pattern is showing player as the second bet. Okay, so let's say a player doesn't show up and we get another banker, as you could see on the shoe. This would be an X. Okay, so we lose our first bet. Now what do? Well, I'm going to continue following the last result. So the last result was an X right over here. So I will be betting on this result being an X as well. How do I do that? I look at my 3 pattern once again. It's showing banker. So I'm going to bet against banker to get the X result right over here. So I will place a bet on player, and player came up. So we get an X and we win our second bet. So this row over here, we were looking at a lose and a win. Okay, so 1 loss and 1 win. Okay, here is where I exit the shoe. You will continue playing the way I just told you, my version, okay, until you get to this situation that I'm about to show you. So we take a free hand over here, and let's say a player shows up. Okay, we get an X. What are we doing now? We are betting for this to be an X because we're just following the last result. All right, so I look at my 3 pattern. I know that I have to bet on banker to get the X. I don't get banker. Another player shows up. We get a check mark instead. Okay, so we lose that bet. What do I do now? I follow the last result. It is a check mark. So I'm looking for a check mark right over here. Look at my 3 pattern. It is a banker. So if I want a check mark, I have to copy that. I place a bet on banker and I lose because a player shows up. All right. So if a player were to show up here, we get an X. So as you can see, we have back-to-back opposites. What do I mean by back-to-back opposites? Well, take a look here. An X showed up. Opposite of X showed up right after, a check mark. And another opposite showed up because we get an X right after the check mark. Okay? So opposite number 1, opposite number 2. This is where I exit the shoe. Okay, so it could look like this, X, check mark, X. It could also look like this, check mark, X, check mark. Same thing, double opposites. Okay, you have a double opposite here and you have a double opposite here. But I would exit the first chance I get once I see a double opposite for the first time. Okay, now sometimes it could happen right off the bat, first row. And if it does, you just exit that shoe. So what I'll do is I'll continue playing until I see a double opposite or until I hit my 3 to 5 units. Because it is bound to happen. You will get this during a shoe. Okay? Now, I have played shoes where this doesn't come up after, like 15 rows. It goes for that long sometimes, okay? But sometimes it's rare. It comes within the first 5 rows, depending on the shoe. So my rule is, as soon as I see a double opposite or 3 to 5 units in profit, I will exit the shoe. Okay, so this is my version of how to play the Hong Kong Baccarat strategy. I hope I've explained it as clear as possible and you're not confused. If you are, leave me a comment below and I will get back to you. But what I'll do now is go online and show you a live demonstration so you have a better idea on how I play my version of the Hong Kong Baccarat strategy. So let's go online and start a session. Here is the live demonstration of the Hong Kong Baccarat strategy, my version. Okay, let's go over to the live casino and find a brand new shoe. Okay, here is a brand new shoe. 2 results have come out already. Now remember, if the first 3 results are all players, we are going to wait until a banker shows up, because we want our 3 pattern to have at least 1 banker and 1 player. We don't want it to be player, 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 or banker, banker, banker. Okay, so at least 1 of each. So let's see what happens here. Okay, so we do get a player, player, player. I'm gonna wait until a banker win. We already know that our pattern will be player, player, banker. So I'm gonna go ahead and write that down. Player, player, banker. We are just waiting for a banker to appear. There is a banker win. We can now take a free hand and see what the first result will be. Will it be a check mark or an X? Whatever it is, we are gonna follow that. All right, so if it's a check mark, we are gonna play for a check mark. If it's an X, we will play for an X. Very simple. And if we get a back-to-back opposite, we will exit the shoe. All right. Seven, 7 tie. We do not record ties. Okay, completely ignore it. So if a player were to win here, we would get a check mark. All right, since our pattern is player, player, banker. Okay, so let's see if player or banker wins here. Natural 9 on the banker. So since this was a player up here, this is an X. We are going to follow the X. All right, so I want this to be wrong as well. We're going to bet on banker. Why banker? Because you can see the second result of our pattern is player. Okay, and if a banker were to come up, we would get an X here, which is exactly what we're going for. We're following the first result. Okay, perfect. We pick up a win. That is another X. So after a win, we just wait for the next row to begin. All right. So we're going to have to take a couple of free hands here. It's a +5. Even though we have won, we continue recording the outcomes. All right. Okay, so there's a banker win, which means this would be a check mark. Okay, so the first row went X, X, check mark. Now we take a free hand here and then follow whatever shows up. Again, if we get a player win, it'll be a check mark. If we get a banker win, it'll be an X. Okay, natural 8 on the banker. So this is an X. We are going to bet on the X again. So against player here, our bet will be banker once again. Super easy, okay guys? Okay, we pick up a win. That was an X. All right, +5. We are going to wait for the next row, but still record the outcome here. All right. So player wins. There is another X on that row, but it doesn't matter. We already picked up a win. We are looking for a free hand here, and then we will place our bet after. By the way, the original Hong Kong strategy, as you can see, 3 X's have showed up here. So if you were playing the original strategy, you would bet for the check mark on this bet right here, okay? And the check mark would have lost because this is an X. So we are going to bet on the X again. Banker. Back to the action. So our bet is on banker. Let's see what happens here. We're looking for the X, obviously. Oh, she's still waiting. Okay, there we go. Can we go 3 for 3? Oh, there is a tie. Remember to ignore ties. Just pop a rebet. Natural 9 on the player's side. So this was a check mark. We are now betting for the check mark. Okay, so up here it's banker. That is exactly where we will bet. All right, so the first result here was an X. We bet for an X. We lost because a check mark came up. So now we are following the last result, which is a check mark. Okay, if you look up here, it says banker. So that is why we are betting on banker. We are looking for the check mark. Let's see if we could pick it up. Okay, there is another tie. Okay, we pick up a win here. Perfect. It was a check mark, +7. So right now we are at +12 in profit. We're going to take a free hand on row number 4. Okay, so banker wins. That was an X. I'm betting on the X. So against player, we're going to bet on banker. Natural 9, perfect. That was an X. Another +5. So this shoe, just a quick note, this shoe will be a winner no matter what. Why? Because we are at +17. If we were to lose back to back, that would be -12. We would still be $5 in profit and we would exit the shoe. All right, so anything after that is just bonus. Okay, so keep that in mind. So that was a player win, another X. Okay, remember, even after a win, we continue recording. So we're going to take a free hand here and then start betting. But yeah, as soon as you're up 2 units, okay, going for the 3rd unit, you are either going to be break even or a +1. Okay, because you're going to exit the shoe if you see back-to-back opposites. We haven't had a back-to-back opposite yet. That is why we are still in the shoe. Okay, so that's a player win. That's a check mark. We are going to follow that. I'm looking for another check mark, so let's go ahead and bet on player. All right, first result was check mark, so super simple. We're just going to bet on the check mark. You could see up here it's a player, which is why we are betting on player, because we want this to be correct and get the check mark. Okay, we pick up another win. Perfect. So everything here is just bonus, okay? We know that we are going to exit the shoe with at least $10 in profit. Because if we get a back-to-back opposite and we lose, we're going to lose $12 and we'll exit the shoe, all right? Still going to record the result here, okay? All right, there is a banker win, so that is another check mark. Now we take a free hand here before we start betting. So if you were playing the original Hong Kong strategy, take a look here. 3 X's on this row. So you would go ahead and bet on check marks, which take a look at what happened. Okay, so the original Hong Kong strategy is still good if you want to use it. I just prefer to use my version. Natural 8 on the banker, so this is an X. We are betting on the X here. I'm going to go for banker. Okay, 7-7 tie. Completely ignore it. Just rebet. Natural 9, perfect. So that was an X. Another $5. We are at $27. That is a little over 5 units. So you know what? Let's go ahead and exit the shoe. You know my rule, I go for 3 to 5 units, even though these are bet spread units. Keep that in mind. Remember to break your unit size down. Okay, so there you go. That was a quick demonstration of the Hong Kong Baccarat strategy. This was my version. Remember, if you take a look at the board here, the original Hong Kong strategy would have also done well on this particular shoe, because take a look here. You have 3 X's in a row, so you would have bet on the check mark. You would have lost the first bet, but won your second bet. Okay? Same goes for this row over here. 3 X's, you would bet on the check mark, and you would have picked up a win on your first bet here. Okay? You won't get this all the time. Sometimes you have to wait for a long time, which is why I prefer my version, like I said. So either one works. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this demonstration. Smash the like button if you enjoyed this video. Check out my website, mrrafael.com. I have more Baccarat strategies on there and a money management course. Leave me a comment and let me know what you think of the strategy, or if you have any other questions that you would like me to answer. Thank you all for watching, and I will catch you in the next one. Ciao.